Good morning. I hope everyone's doing well today. Perfect. Welcome to today's workshop, the Scale Blueprint for growing your infrastructure. Building your growth infrastructure. My name is Amagella McKelvey Tate, and I am the program coordinator here at the Innovation Cluster. And we are so excited to have you all with us today. So, for those who may be new to us, the Innovation Cluster is an innovation hub, and we help entrepreneurs across Ontario grow and scale with purpose through mentorship, community, and programs built for real-world impact. We greatly appreciate you choosing to be with us today as a part of your journey. Now, on to today's incredible workshop. Today's workshop unpacks how successful software companies move from early traction to structured scale. You'll learn how to assess true readiness for growth from validating PMF signals to ensuring your product, tech, and team are ready for bigger demands. Whether you're a founder, a product leader, or part of a growth stage team, this session will help you create a clear, evidence-driven path from product market fit to scalable success. Today's speaker is Moshe Mikanovsky, a product management leader who started his career on the engineering side, specifically within the enterprise B2B software space. He fell in love with product management after seeing the gap that existed between what customers wanted and what engineering produced. Moshe enjoys applying his lean, iterative approach to develop products that exceed users' expectations. He is founder and product coach at Products for Good, helping startup founders avoid costly product mistakes so they can create more good in the world, and product director at Root Quotient. Through both organizations, he mentors and coaches at accelerators and incubators such as the Innovation Cluster, Founder Institute, DNZ, Communitech, and Y-Space, to name a few. Now, just before we dive into things, just want to cover a few housekeeping notes. So we will be watching the chat throughout the session. So if you've got any questions, drop them in and I'll make sure they get to Moshe at the end. We encourage you to turn your cameras on as we love to see your faces and it helps to make the session much more engaging. And at the end of the workshop, we'll be running a quick poll to hear about your experience. Please stick around and share your feedback. It's greatly appreciated and helps us improve future sessions. And most importantly, please don't be shy. It's a great space to ask any questions, share ideas, and learn something you can actually use when today's call ends. Perfect. All right, we shall get started. Thank you, Moshe. We'll pass it right over to you.
Thank you so much, Magella. I think everyone can hear me, right? Yes, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and we'll start right away because we do have quite a bit to cover today. And let me know that you can actually see my screen.
Yep,
Yes?
we
Okay,
can see your screen. Perfect.
perfect, amazing. And I see some um, faces and names that I'm familiar with, and some new ones. So I'm always happy to reconnect with founders and also to meet new ones. So this is really great that you're all here. I want to start it with this question. So feel free to put your answer on the chat because in order for us to grow, we need to know when to grow. So how do you know you have reached product market fit and it's time to grow? Put your answers in the chat. I'm going to check the chat as well because I'm really interested to hear what people here are thinking right now about product market fit and readiness for growth. Whatever comes to you, whatever you think it is. Some of you have been to my previous workshops and webinars, so you might know the answers. And maybe the chat is not long enough for you to write it all down. I don't know if I see the chat here or not. Oh, I started seeing here. Thank you, Q. People want my product, reaching out through word of mouth. That's great. That's a good signal over there. Posts going viral on social media when you have enough customers. Okay. Anyone else wants to add? These are some of the good signs in there. It's a good question what enough customers is, right? So that maybe is something we will touch on. You have reached product market fit when customers are consistently getting value and would be disappointed if the product disappears. Very good. So I see some of you have either done the homework or they already know some of the answers. So I'm really glad to read those comments. Okay, so let's start. In addition to the bio that Anmajela shared with you, I just wanted to share a few more things about myself for those who don't know me. I'm originally from Israel. I moved to Toronto in 2002, so I've been around here for a bit. And before that, I was also in the States for 6 years. I started my career as a software developer. This was the first computer that I was developing on back in 1989. So it's been a while, and I've seen a lot of changes in technology, in products, in the way we build things, in the way we consume things. In 2011, I moved to product management, and product management is that discipline between the business and the customers to the building the product. These are some of the companies I worked for on the left and some of the companies we build products for on the right. These days, as was mentioned, I have my own consultancy called Products for Good, where I'm helping founders to save time and money with not building the wrong things. I'm also an instructor for information systems and design thinking at Schulich, at York University. I have a couple of podcasts related to product management. And I'm also an author. I wrote a book. It's a fiction book, so you will not be able to learn from reading the book anything about product management. But I try to, when I build it and before I released it, I try to also apply some of my product management skills to that. Okay, so how to know if it's truly time to scale? What exactly is product market fit, and can we even measure it? So let's start with that. Before we move into scaling and growing, we first want to know what are the signs. And some of you have mentioned some great signs that we'll talk about. But first, let's talk about your product when you build it and before when you start building it. It's really just an hypothesis. Your hypothesis is that there is a problem and the problem is real. There is a market that has this problem, so you will be able to access this market, and you can build a solution that will solve this problem for that market. Then you build the MVP, and probably all of you or most of you that are here already are beyond that point. An MVP can be of different sizes, different solving different problems, sometimes maybe not even solving a problem at all, or solving another problem or whatever it is. But you will iterate over time with your MVP until you really reach a product market fit. And the product market fit is where there is an overlap between the problem and the market and your solution. But your solution usually will be able only to capture a very small portion of that market. And then the growth is where you want to increase that coverage of your solution to a bigger size of the market that still have the same problem. So the market and the problem has a big overlap, but your solution will grow over time. And that's the main thing we will talk about later on. But before that, we need to understand, how do we know we are here, that we're in this product market fit? So are we there yet, right? That's a question we have to ask ourselves all the time. There are not, there isn't one definition of product market fit, but this is probably one of the statements that was quoted from Egan Montgomery, director of go-to-market from High Alpha. And he basically said, and a lot of people agree with him in the market, in the early stages pre-product market fit, founder push their product into the market. But then at some point, the best companies achieve product market fit, which is characterized by pull from the market. And Q mentioned that you mentioned that in the I hope he's still here. I don't see him. But he mentioned that in the comments, how people are actually say to other people about your product. So there is more of a pull from the market. The pull manifests in several ways. Customers start to demand your product. They come to you. They tell their friends about it. Many who experience this will tell you it's a feeling. but there are ways to quantify this pull in force. So some of the things about product market fit is really it's not there isn't one absolute way to measure that. So there are a few ways to measure that, and I will share with you quickly a few of them. Not so much how to build them, but what they are. It's a feeling versus an exact science. So there is that factor over there of a feeling that you can say, okay, yes, we do have a feeling right now that we are in product market fit. You will could use combination of methods to make it more quantifiable. There is a range there, so it's usually not like a one number, even though we will see some numbers, but it's usually not just one number to say this is it, and it also could be very subjective to your specific situation, and it can change over time. So because it can change over time, you need constant assessments. So you will have to measure this question, are we there yet? Once you're there, you will have to ask, and are we still there? Right? So there is still that ongoing thing to do. So Mixpanel is maybe some of you know them. It's a platform, SaaS platform for product analytics, and they did a research some time ago, and they came up with these six things. They couldn't even quantify, rules or things, so they call it things. They didn't want to call it rules or anything about product market fit, where they said, based on the research and all the information they found and all the companies and people they talked to, retention is the most important thing. So your user retention, how do you retain them? Then you would still need to pay attention to other indicators, and we'll speak about a few of those indicators. It's a spectrum, so like I said, it's not one thing or one number, but there is a range there. Every business is unique, so you have to use metrics that matter for your product. So you cannot necessarily say, I will use everything other people are using. There are some unique metrics, and we will talk about that, but there are also some more specific ones that are very unique for each product. Once you find it, it's not statics. It's not static. Refining the PMF requires constant iteration. So you need to pay attention to it, and you might need to refine what it means to your product as you go. And then if you shift the focus to growth too early, although it's tempting, it will hurt you in the long run. So everyone that they talked with, or most people that they talk with, they've seen that patterns that if they try to grow faster before they got to product market fit, it actually do the opposite of helpful. Okay, it hurt in the long run because you don't have the right way to support it. You don't have the right way to make sure that you can actually grow fast. So, and we'll talk about many of those things. What are the things that you need to grow? And you will see if you do this too early, how how bad that can be. So what are the signals that we're on the right track? Okay. So the first signal is that push versus pull. So we talk about this feeling, and there are a few things here that you can do. You can say, what is the amount of dollar we spend on marketing that brings people versus users that hear about the product and come to you, right? So if you have people coming in and you can bucket them based on how they got to start using the product. Is it because of your outbound marketing efforts and everything around it, or is it because inbound they just heard about it, right? And you can compare those things. Building branding via active effort. How active are you? You need to be to build your brand. Posting, writing, podcasting, versus people talk about you, and there is some media talking about all type of medias. It could be social media, it could be traditional media, whatever that is, right? User requests unrelated to the core value. So whatever the users request you to add to the product, if you didn't get product market fit, they might find other things they want the product to use for, not what you envision it for or whatever it is. And they will ask things that are unrelated to your vision, to what you're really trying to build. Where if there is a product market fit, the pool, they will ask to improve the core value. So everything most of or everything they ask will be related to the core value that you're creating for them. Churn increases over time, where churn reduces over time. Churn is really the opposite of retention. So people are leaving, right? And then you will feel it as an uphill, hard effort versus downhill, easier effort. Okay, so that's some signals related to push versus pull. Now, retention, the as we saw with Mixpanel, six things, it's the most important thing. When we try to define and see what the retention of the user, we use this retention curve. And you could have many different type of retention curves, but the idea is that the 100% of people that start using your product, and here we're not talking about the before they start using the product. It's not about the acquisition funnel, but it's about conversion. Once they are converted and they sign up for your product, do they still use the product on a longer basis, right? So 100% of them started on day one. Then over time, how many of them drop off, and whether the drop off continues or whether it is balancing somewhere, or even some people are coming back. Okay, so a bad retention is that over time it will fall off and eventually it will be zero. That means you didn't retain any of your users. That's a bad retention. If it is kind of balancing, but it's still a little below the 50% line, it's okay. But a good one is that you don't go below the 50%. And then a great one is you go above. So in your MVP, usually you will be here. We never develop things that are the right things the first time. But in product market fit, you want to be here, that your retention is about 50% or close to that, and there is constant retention. Now, the idea there is also that you don't just measure it one time and that's it for one cohort of users, but over time, people will start using your product in different times, and you will continue measuring it for each cohort of users. How long did it take them after X amount of time are they still there or not? So this is retention. Now, KPIs, other things to measure. And here it's important to identify the right measurements and the right type of KPIs to use. So it's important to distinguish between lagging and leading indicators. Laggings are those that look at the past, like revenue growth, or profit. You cannot change anything. It's too late to make any change because this is how much we made in the past. It may not tell us this is how much we will make in the future, right? And so it cannot predict your future, and it's typically out of the control of your product team, so people that develop the product, to make any changes over there. Leading indicators are predictive of future outcomes. Things like daily or monthly active users will tell you if we are keeping that daily active users, and this is the pattern that we see, this is what might happen in the future. It will affect your bottom line as well, because the higher your active monthly users, the more revenue you will get from the licenses that they pay. As simple as that. There is more control for the product team because the product team can do things in the product, can change the product accordingly to influence how people are behaving in the product, to make them happier, to make them get more value, whatever that is. So what you want to do is identify and measure your leading indicators. And here there is a lot of them. I wanted to share with you a few, and I won't have time to go into each one of them, how to measure it and what it is. But in general, the main two buckets here are engagements KPIs, so how people are engaged with your product. So what is the things like daily active users or weekly or monthly or stuff like that? How stickiness is your product to them? So how often they use it, their satisfaction, the session length, the session frequency, a lot of things that you can measure as you go, and you want to increase those things over time, right? And the second one is a retention KPR. We talked already about churn and retention, which are the opposite of each other, but there is also renewal, their lifetime, health score for the customer, and it depends on what you do and how you do it, etc. But these are like generic KPIs that you can choose from in order to see what makes sense to you for your product. And don't choose all of them. It's very hard to keep track of everything. Just choose one or two that are the most important for you. Now, there are also some key actions that you want to know in your product specifically, and how they correlate with user retention. So it's still about user retention, but there are things specific to your product that if your users are doing in your product, then it's a much easier thing for them or for you to predict that they will come back in again. So the retention will get high, will be better. So some examples for that, you might know about Facebook. They realized after some times that if a new user invite friends within a week, so friends that are not yet on Facebook, then they will much more chances that they will really stay with Facebook and will be longer term user of Facebook. So once they knew this, they now can focus their efforts on making users do that in the first week. Okay, whatever that means in the product. Okay. LinkedIn, connect with at least 5 people within the first week. Slack, teams send 2,000 messages. Dropbox, upload at least one file to a folder. Uber, complete first ride within the first few days of signing up. So you see, it's unique to each one of them, and they had to look into the data and find out this information. But then once they knew that, they were able to do something about it, right? This is a more generic one that I found about e-commerce, make a repeat purchase within 30 days. But maybe for some e-commerce, then it's more than 30 days. Maybe for some of them, it's less than 30 days. So you need to check your numbers, right? So what you want to do is to find your key action, analyze which action or actions most distinguish retained users from those who churn. So if you look into the segmentation of your users to compare those that churn to those that are returning and look at the actions that they did, try to find out how much, which specific actions correlate to that. And then you can test it over time to see, yes, this is still happening with new users. It's not just a hypothesis. And then you can make changes in your product to make them do this action faster. And it's to and usually the key action is something that realize the value fast. So users come to your product to do something, to realize a value. And if they don't realize the value fast, they probably will forget about the product and they will say, this doesn't work for me, or they will try to find something else that does it faster, right? So if you can think about what users are coming to do, that's the main value that they do in the product and how fast they get to it, and correlate that with churn versus retention, you might be able to find this key action. Okay, now the last way to test if you have product market fit is the Sean Ellis test. And someone, I don't remember who it was, mentioned about users being disappointed with your product not being available. So this is a test that Sean Ellis created, and that's why it's called after him. And you ask the users, how would you feel if you could no longer use the product? So, and then you measure those who said very disappointed. And the magic number that he found was 40%. So he found that if 40% of them will say very disappointed, then you reach your product market fit. 30% and above, of course. So your goal over time is to reach that and go over these 40%, right? So again, this is another way to test it. There could be some problems with that because sometimes it's not too subjective, etc. And you also need to know what to do with the information that you get afterwards. So how do you improve? So if you get 20%, what do you do now, right? So there are ways to do it, but I could talk a whole hour just about that. So we will leave it for another time. What I wanted to go next is, okay, now we have all of those signals. We know we are at product market fit. What are the technical and operational foundations that we need in order for scale? So we basically are here. We made it. Now what? What do we do now? Right? So we want really to get from here to here. You see, the market is still the same market. The problem is the same problem. But now we want to grow our solutions so it will be able to support much more of that market that have the problem, right? So the way we see it is we see it in 3 buckets. So the things that we need to develop overall for our product, we have 3 buckets. The first bucket is innovation. And you see, I put a playful bucket over here that is new and is like a kid playing with a bucket and stuff like that because we innovate. We want to innovate things. Then the second one is iteration. We are kicking that same thing again and again and again, and it looks quite kicked after a while. And the last thing is operation, and here we need to clean things. We need to make things work properly. Okay. Now, the things that go into innovation are things like new features, integrations, full features overall, sometimes even rebuilding our entire product from scratch using new technology because now it has to support more innovative way to solve the problem. On iterations, we put things like improving the flow of things. So we already solved something, we have it in the system, but now the flow is better. Or testing, A/B testing to see what way to solve the same things will work better. Or fixes to improve our KPIs. All of those KPIs that I mentioned before, how do we make them better? How do we increase those lines, right? And in operations, we can put things like security and privacy, performance and uptime, tech debt and upgrades, internal tooling, bug fixes. I will talk mainly in the rest of our session today about these things. Okay, so the idea there is to also ask yourself at every stage of my product, what is the percentage of work that I really should put in each one of these buckets? So pre-MVP, before we even got the MVP, is all about innovation. It's all about I'm building something new that is going to be different from other things. There is some unique value proposition, and I'm innovating and I'm building something. Then when we release our MVP and it's early, it's an early MVP to pre-MF, so we're still far from the product market fit, but we already have an MVP out there and we want to iterate on it. Sometimes we'll call it an alpha. There will be innovation, more like 30% of innovation. So you see how it drops from 100% to 30. There is still a lot of iteration about on the things that we put out there to the users, and there will be some operations to clean things up. When we get closer to the product market fit, like late MVP to PMF, you see the focus go a lot on a lot of iteration, and innovation is 10%, with operations about 20%. Now, this is not set in stone. You can, modify that, but this is a bit of guidelines. Now, we are here trying to move now from product market fit to growth after product market fit. And you see here, operations become a much more a big focus. We still want to do some innovation. We still need to do some iteration, but we need to do a lot of things that we have kind of neglected before or pushed it aside, because here we needed to prove that our hypothesis is correct. Here we already know our hypothesis is correct. We know who are the users that it's a good fit for, and we know the problem we're solving to them. So now we have to build a lot of things to make it work much bigger, much faster. And that's the growth aspect that we're talking about, right? And then once you are growing, and there is a lot of things to build there, if you are steady and you're getting into kind of a maintenance mode, you want to come back again to innovation. Because if you don't come back to innovation, you will start losing against the competition, and new incumbents, new comers to the market will probably innovate faster than you can innovate at that time. Okay, so big companies that are still successful these days are spending a lot of innovations on an ongoing basis, and not just getting into, milking cash cow that doesn't grow anymore. Okay, so we are here. Yeah, we made it, and now the focus is on operations on this bucket mainly. I'm not going to cover these items over here. I mainly want to cover that growth. What do we need to do in order to grow in that 70%? Okay, so your goal right now is to grow the solution, right? What the idea here is to support the same market and the same problem. You're growing that solution, right? So you will need to find new clients. You already know what is a good fit, because when you got to product market fit, first of all, there is a bigger pull than a push. So people are coming to you. But also, if you have a sales team or whichever way you do your marketing and sales, you now know who are the right people to approach. What is the type, what is the segment of the market that actually fit your solution because they have that problem. So you already know that, right? You want to support them properly, and this includes onboarding, ongoing usage, maintenance, and we'll talk a lot about that next. You want to keep them. What makes them come back? So this is still the retention. So you want to keep an eye on the retention. You want to keep an eye on product market fit, and you want to make a profit out of all of that. So if you grow by throwing a lot of money into it and doing a lot of manual things like you did when you were little in the MVP and before getting to product market fit, you may not be profitable. It's just about throwing more money into it. So it needs to be sustainable to the company. Okay, so you want to have all of that in mind when you move on. So let's talk about how do we, again, I have more buckets going on here. Within these operation buckets, there are three different smaller buckets that we can kind of break our work into. All of them are important, so I didn't really break it down to percentages, but things will make sense to you with your product based on different things like who your users are, what's the compliance that you have to do sometimes, how steady you're getting new clients. Are you need to support clients that are enterprises and have thousands of users or consumers that it's one user at a time? So there are many different aspects there to define for your product. So I'm not getting there. I want to have more an overview of the things that you have to take care of. So the first one is keep it up. You want to make sure that your system is up and running. And part of it is availability, reliability, and security. Okay. I will go into each one of these in the next slide. So we will see what those are. Okay. The next one is keep it fixable. So you want to make sure that you can fix things when things go wrong. So is it maintainability, serviceability, and observability? Okay. And the last one is keep it growing. You want to make sure that all of those new clients that are coming in that are now you can pull from the market and you know how to get, that it's scalability, there is recoverability and supportability, because the more clients that will come in, the more you will need to do these things. Okay. Now, with all of that, there is also the change management to keep it all working well. Okay. Um, this is I thought I changed this slide when I made some changes this morning, and it still looks like the old slide. So I hope later on I don't. Okay, but it's still saying what I wanted to say. It's just the design just set me off a little there. Okay, so the change management, you really want to make sure that when you make those changes, you have the right processes and procedures in place and the right mindset for change management. This is yes. Someone was saying something? Okay, never mind. So this is where I've seen in the past a lot of growth pains for organizations, and there will be growth pains in there. And those growth pains are related to each one of those things here that we need to take care of, right? So change management is a way that you can set up, rules and processes and things to help you be on control of, okay, we need to make that change. What's the impact? And the impact usually is not just to you, it's to the users first. So what's the impact to the users? Because when you change something, what will be their reactions? Are they still going to like you, or they will all of a sudden decide you're not a good fit for them anymore, and all of that stuff. Okay. So oh, I see what happened. This is the new slide I was working on, and I forgot to delete the previous slide. So that's all. Okay. So it's saying the same thing, right? Okay, so let's talk about matrices and the matrices that matter most as you grow, okay? And this will be for each one of those that we talked about, all of those technical and operational foundations. So again, what do we need to track? And by being able to know what you need to track, you can put plans in your roadmap and in your steps going forward. So the first thing, continue tracking product market fit. You don't want to stop that, right? So the pull versus push, the key action, the user retention, the show analysis test, whichever one of them or a combination of them that you want to track. So don't stop doing that. Then you want to do to check how sustainable is your operations. What is your operational health in each one of those bucket? The keep it up, keep it flexible, and keep it growing. Okay, so let's dive into each one of those items. So the first one, keep it up, availability. Here, the question that you want to ask is, what is our promise to our users that they can use our product when they need to, when they need it, right? So you want to make sure that the product is available. And here, the things that usually you will have some type of service level agreement with them. And in the service level agreement, the SLA, you will have some uptime. What is your uptime availability? And we usually measure that in a percentage of the time of the overall time, right? Now, depends again on the product. If it's a mission critical product that is used by enterprises, but it's used only between 9 to 5 in North American time zones, then maybe those are the time zones that you have to deal with, and you don't have to deal with yet with other time zones. But if it is a system that consumers use and they use it all around the clock and you don't know exactly when they will use it, you may need to support 24/7. So it all depends again on your product, what that means. But here we usually will say it's a 3 nines or 4 nines or 5 nines, and this means 99.9% of the time it's up, or 99.99% or 99.999%. Okay, so that's from the overall time that it needs to be up. What is your commitment that is going to be up? And then how attainable is it? Is your system actually working well enough that it is attainable? And then also incident count by severity for users facing outages. So if there is an outage that is facing your users, what is their count in general by severity? And you will have to define what each issue means, how severe it is, etc., etc., and count those things. And you want to have lower numbers on that or zero, right? So again, all depends on your product, etc. Most companies will use all of these. It's up to you what you're choosing. I'm just giving you a few KPIs that you can measure over time, and this will give you directions to say with your technical team to say, okay, if we cannot attain 99.9, then why? What do we need to do in order to make that happen? And sometimes it could be technical changes, it could be other things. Okay. Some strategies here, focus on the parts of the product that customer depend on most. So not everything in your product is critical mission. Some of them are more, some of them are less, and maybe you can play with that. Redundancy, load balancing, health checks, and geographical distribution infrastructure. These are all technical solutions that could work. If you're not technical, then just go and talk with your technical person, with your CTO, or whoever it is, to make sure that they explain to you what that means. Many of those things are attainable with the cloud, so the cloud could support you with those things, but not everything. So you need to make sure that you know what they are. Uptime monitoring in different regions. So you want to monitor things. Monitoring is important. If you don't monitor, then you will not be able to know where you are with those KPIs. And you want also to monitor your infrastructure, and the infrastructure is different from the uptime. The uptime is to the end users. The infrastructure is specifically to specific servers or things like that that you have control over. And again, those things on the cloud usually are monitored by the cloud provider. And of course, you want to have some incident management. So what are the incidents? What is their severity, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I'm seeing time is running quickly here on our workshop, so I might be a bit fast here on some of those. We covered 1 out of 9, so we have 8 more to cover. So I don't want to rush too much, but I'm probably not going to explain each one of the KPIs just because of time. But there is plenty of information out there to explain how to measure each one of them. It's important that you know what they are, okay? Or that they exist, or at least what question to ask. This is really the most important thing. What is the question I have to ask related to reliability? Does our product work correctly and consistently, not just be available? So it could be available 99,999, but is it really working well, right? Is it doing what is it supposed to do? So things like error rates for your critical user actions, the data correctness and consistent. You want to make sure that everything is consistent. With AI, it's a bit more trickier because AI, it's about predictability and it hallucinates many times. And when it hallucinates, is that correct? Is that expected? What do you do with that, right? Latency for critical paths. So how long does it take for the user to use something that is critical for them? So not everything is on the same level. Successful task completion rate. And this is where what's the percentage of your users that start a specific task, end it without any support from you, from a person or from, the system. And also they don't have any errors, etc. Right? So you want to make sure this percent is the highest as possible. Some strategies here: automate tests for happy path. Automation of test is all about quality assurance, and there are tools to do that, to automate the test. Not everything can be automated. Some things are more trickier to automate, especially user interfaces. But you want to see how you automate things because then you can run them and make sure you don't have degradation and of your quality, right? Predictable data states. Oops, and consistent experience across environments. So making sure that the data is consistent and predictable, and making sure that it doesn't matter where they use the product, it will always give them the similar results, right? But you have to know where users should use the product. And security: is our product secure so hackers cannot invade it and steal sensitive data? And are we protecting our users and clients, right? So things here you can measure are things like vulnerability density, how vulnerable the code is and the system is, and there are tools to do it or companies that can help you with that. Percentage of assets covered, so the coverage of securities on the overall build of your product. Unauthorized access attempts, so how many unauthorized attempts happen to your systems. Sometimes the more known you are, the more prone to attacks you are. So when you grow, it's just something that happens to many companies. But hackers will try anything and everything, right? And then your mean time to remediate any security issue that you might have, right? Some strategies here: security first mindset. So many times when we build the MVP, we don't think about it too much because we want to get something out there. And there is not too many users anyway that will worry about this. And we rely on some security mechanisms that are very simple, things like coming from the cloud that you are hosting it on, or things like that. But over time, as your system becomes more and more bigger, there will be more complexities, right? Visibility to you, of all your stack, the full stack, means security. So the more visible things to you about how things are done, the more secure they will be. So relying on third parties could be tricky sometimes with that because you many times don't have visibility into their security. All you can do is rely on their word or rely on their agreement with them. And you have to be careful with that. Security checks part of your development work. So embed security into development work. So it's not just an afterthought. Defense at every point. So systems are very, very complex. Security issues could happen in each point. So if you just cover one of those, like the front end, and you don't cover the back end, you're not secure enough. Things could go wrong anywhere in between those things. Okay. So that was the first one. The second one, keep it fixable. So here we're talking about maintainability, serviceability, and observability. So in maintainability, how easy it is for us to fix and improve the product, both the code quality and the development speed. And here we're talking about the cycle to do it, the change failure rate. So when we release things, new versions of our product, how many times we have errors because of that, or we have to roll back to a previous version. So if the system is too fragile, that's not good, right? Code coverage by automated tests, we talked a little about that, and technical debt ratio. So the cost to fix this versus the cost to build completely new because it's so bad, it's so badly written, or it's not supporting what we need. Some strategies here, incremental refactoring as a cultural norm. So refactor all the time, not just like one-time thing. Prioritize hotspot of that. So know what is more important to fix. And modular first architecture. So if you do microservices or things that could be fixed on their own without impacting everything else, that's much easier to fix later. Serviceability is about how well can we diagnose and resolve issues with minimal impact on users. So we want to be able to resolve them, say what the problem is, why it happens, and solve it, but also have minimal impact to the users, right? Downtimes and things like that. So KPIs here are things like mean time to detection, mean time to resolution, quite self-explanatory. Support ticket escalation rate to the engineering team. So the more tickets coming to the engineers, the more it means that the system is fragile and you need to have a lot of hands-on with technical people on it. Diagnostic coverage of critical user flow. So again, how do we diagnose? How do we know things, right? Some strategies are log and audit trails, internal admin tools to help your support fix the issues versus having them to come to you all the time. So there are things they can do on their own. Traceability of users and actions. So a lot of data analytics, product analytics system can give you this traceability. Session replay, so you can actually replay a session. Product analytics and dashboards, etc. Next one is observability. And here the question is, how well can we prevent issues before our users see them? Do we have an early warning system and how effective it is? So this is observability is about us being able to know these things before our users know them, right? So so here things are like error budget remaining. So let's say based on our SLA, what is our availability to make mistakes? So we can measure that. It's maybe not be straightforward, but it's one of those KPIs available out there. Anomalous traffic performance patterns compared to normal benchmarks. So if we know what's the normal is, we can track what is not normal, like DDoS attacks or things like that. Now, you may have too many alerts and monitoring to your team. So alert fatigue and signal to noise ratio to your team. So beware of wolf. You don't want the team to have so many warnings all the time so they don't pay attention to any of them because they're not real warnings, right? So you have to have a balance there. And your deployment frequency is based on the failure rate. So how many times you deploy. So if you deploy a new version once a week, what's the percentage there of failed deployments that deploy successful, right? So some strategies is logging, metrics, tracing, alerting. You can define a North Star action for monitoring. So you don't have to monitor everything. You can monitor specific things. So it could be that key action that we talked about before. It could be other things in your system. You can do alert on the symptoms, not on the causes. So if a CPU is high usage, it doesn't mean a bad thing all the time. But if there is user latency, then users cannot use it. Now, the cause of user latency could be a CPU outage, but it could be something else. So you want to have alerts on what is the symptom and then track back to see what really was the cause for that. And is it a legitimate cause or not? And then blame-free review culture. Don't say we blame each other why it happens, but more about what happened and how do we prevent it. So learn from every experience. And then the last thing is and I'm already beyond my time, but I have a few more slides. So if it's okay with the team here, I will continue. Yes?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, sorry for that. So keep it growing. So here we're talking about scalability. How well can our product and our team absorb growth without performance and cost degradation? So if we are growing, we want to make sure that it's still working in the same way. So things like product scalability support in 10 times or 100 times or whatever you want to, your goal is of the usage, number of users, number of clients, team scalability without quality dropping off. So if you add more people to develop, you still need to maintain your quality or make it even better. Efficiency ratio, looking for cost per customer reduction. So in software, we want to make the more user using it, the same expense to build it. So if we build it for $1,000 and one user using it, it's $1,000 per user. 1,000 user using it, it's $1 per client, right? So we want to keep that ratio coming down versus going up. So we are still, making money from that. And then we want to check also our latency under load, and there are ways to test it, right? So things automate before you hire, modularize early, keep hiring bar high, etc. Recoverability, how fast can we restore service after failures or attacks so it doesn't impact our growth? Things like our recovery time objective, recovery point objective. This one is interesting. It's about data. So if we lost data and we have to retrieve data from a backup, do we have a backup from a year ago, a month ago, a day ago, a minute ago? Each one of those point of times will mean that we lost data up to that point of time, right? So the smaller it is, the less data that we're actually going to lose. Mean time to remediate and successful restoration rate. So after we restore from a backup or whatever it is, what is the error rate that we have over there? Because these things could actually happen as well. Some strategy, backup, disaster recovery, incident response, test your recovery plan. So make sure you test it. Automate your restore. So the more automation, the less prone to errors it is from manual work. And make your backups immutable so they cannot be changed. So no one mess up with your backups, right? And supportability, how well can we support the growing number of users who will have more edge cases? So more people will have more edge cases. Is our support engine scalable, right? So this is support, number of people of support to user ratio, deflection rate. So the potential cases solved by self-service. So users can solve it on their own. First response time and resolution time, escalation rate to the engineers. Again, how many times we need to call engineers for that. And here there is a lot of things we can do, onboarding and documentation, help desk and clear escalation paths. Product is first line of support, so fix usability issue, so they don't have to come to you. Sales service in the point of friction, so what can they do? What can you give the users in their time? And empower your support team. So you want to make sure that they have the context so they can actually support the users. Okay, so those are the 9 things and a lot there, I'm sure. Use those as a checklist for yourself. Okay. What I will do is I probably will skip the next section only because I ran out of time. But in this section, and we can make, I'm not sure if we're making those slides available or not, but yes, okay, great. So this is more about some common scale mistakes, and how to prevent them. So premature scaling is the first one. Founder bottlenecks. So when you are the bottleneck for everything is the second one. And some prevention strategies. Complexity bloat, so making things more complex than it needs to be. Some prevention strategies there. Ignoring your debt, technical debt, operational debt, all of that debt. So if you ignore that, that's usually bad. And hiring before process. If you just start pushing people into it, it doesn't mean that it's going to be solved itself, right? And here, people, I'm also talking about AI. Okay, so AI is not a process. AI is a tool that these days people tend to push at the problem like they used to push people at the problem, right? And that's it. Sorry for rushing those last slides. I wanted to cover more than I was able to. So I will pass this to Anne for a few slides here, and then we might have some time for questions and answers.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Moshe. We greatly appreciate it. So, just before we get into the Q&A, just going to cover a few things. First, we will be launching a poll here very quickly to get your feedback on your experience today. We really greatly appreciate it and helps us improve and continue to run amazing workshops for you. So, it should launch here in just a sec. Um, while that is launching, just a huge thank you for joining today. We greatly appreciate you joining. As mentioned, we will be sharing the recordings and the slides. So keep an eye on your inbox today and you will receive those shortly. And then for upcoming events, we have an amazing panel coming up on May 14th, and it's all about AI. And we will be joined by experts from AI Innovate, Fleming College, Durham College, and Ontario Centre for Innovation to discuss how AI is being implemented among different industries today. So we have a QR code there, but we will email this out as well today. So please register, especially if you love today's workshop. We offer programming all the time, and so we'd love to see you there. We are also currently accepting applications for Level Up Scale. So this is a two-stage program to help you design and implement your growth plan to scale your business. Applications close on Friday, May 15th, but we would love to see you apply. So you can scan the QR code there to submit your application if you're scaling your business and would like some support with that. I'll also email this out later on as well. And then next slide. If you really found today's workshop extremely valuable, we would really appreciate a Google review. So you can scan the QR code to share your feedback. It really means a lot to us. And I believe that is all my notes. So if I'll also add here on Moshe's contact page, if you are an Innovation Cluster client, you are able to meet with Moshe for an expert in residence session. And so if you'd like to meet with Moshe as a client, please just email myself and we can make that happen. Just wanted to include that plug in there.
Thank you.
Um,
I appreciate that.
Perfect, of course. And yeah, if you're building a business, we'd love to connect. And so the innovation cluster is here to help founders like you grow with purpose from your MVP to scaling up. And so if you have any questions or like support from Innovation Cluster, feel free to reach out. But now we'll get right into the Q&A portion. And so I know we only have 2 minutes. So yes, there was a question that came in from Danielle. Do companies communicate these availability promises to customers?
Yes, actually, this is what we call an SLA. Companies will expect to have what is a service level agreement, and many times it will be in their agreement with the company when they sign up, especially in B2B. Um, so the idea there is that they will want to know if they can rely on your product and whether you are, committing to that or not. There are also some tools that you can plug into your product that will measure your uptime and will even share it publicly with the clients. So the clients, and you might have seen it sometimes if there was a product that you couldn't use, they might have a link to check availability. And one of those product is called Status Page, I believe, by Atlassian. So you can integrate it with your product. It will monitor your product and will share. And you can configure it exactly like which component of your product is up or down because some products are very complex and have lots of components. So it could be by component specifically or things like that. But yes, clients do look for those things, especially when you grow and you have B2B clients.
Perfect. So we are right at noon, but there was one question that popped in the chat, so maybe we can answer that quickly if you have time, Moshe, and
Yeah, yeah,
then
yeah.
we can end it there.
Go ahead.
Perfect. Okay, so as teams scale AI, where do you see the biggest risk of it accelerating bad decisions, and what should founders fix first to prevent that?
And is the question here about scaling AI in your operations, or is it about scaling AI in your product?
As both together, Moshi, this Manchu here.
Yeah, both of them?
So yeah,
Yeah,
so basically I'm trying to build a decision safety layer for the AIs
yeah, yeah.
as SaaS and enterprise APIs all together. Basically, I'm trying to pause people response in especially the critical time.
Okay, yeah. So if we're talking about operations specifically, I do definitely recommend to use AI in part of your operations, but be very, do it like any other tool that you implement in your operations to see what is really the value it give you and whether you have to have a human in the loop or not in some of that, and how much you really need to be on top of it or let it do its own thing on its own, right? So there is definitely risk. And the biggest risk, I would say, in that is that it's not been it's been implemented too quickly on one hand without your understanding how it impacts your business. So if you look into each one of those points that operations that you need to cover for the product, we didn't talk about sales, we didn't talk about marketing, we didn't talk about a lot of things, right? But for the product specifically, see that it makes sense to use it. Now, in the product itself, if you are improving the AI in the product itself, there is definitely things there that you need to pay attention to. One of them is if you're using a third-party AI, and most startups doing that, especially in MVP, and you use, oh, okay, it's not another AI, it's a decision safety layer on top of AI. Okay, that's interesting. No, that's a really interesting humanity GPT. So that's actually helping the human in the loop be a better human in the loop, I guess. If
That's
I
right. That's part of correct. Yes, yes.
if I read
Now
you
you're getting
correct.
the right direction. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's okay. I mean, I don't know if you have any AI built part of that or not. That will be interesting to see. But if your product is not using AI at all, then it's all about the things that I already mentioned. It's much more deterministic, and it's really about making sure that you can support that product market fit that you reached. As simple as that. If and I will completely answer related to even products that do have AI in them, because you might have some AI in there doing something in the backend, or other people here on the webinar do have AI as part of the product. Um, Sometimes the use cases that we have for the AI, it might be a good idea to start with the LLMs, but many times it may not fit exactly because they are generic, and even the data that we add to them may not be enough, and we may want to build a dedicated model, AI model for that. But that means a whole new architecture for that. And it actually, those questions that we ask about scalability and about predictability and all of those things to the users, right, are all good questions to ask also in this model to say, can we support the users, the segment of users that we need to support with this architecture that we built here with those existing LLMs, or is there a need for something more robust that will be much more accurate for their needs and need a whole new AI model for that, right? So I would ask those same questions with the mindset and definition that AI is a tool and AI is part of your architecture. And I can do different things with AI, with different models of AI. And if I replace one with another, what would it mean to my product growth?
Amazing. Thank you so much, Moshe, and thank you to everyone for participating today. We greatly appreciate it. As I mentioned a few times, I will be sending out an email by end of day today with the slides, the recordings, and all the links that we shared. We greatly appreciate it, and we hope to see you at our next event. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.